Follow at But Would You and you be alright. What's going on, family? Dang, I had a cool transition for y'all to kind of with the effects and everything, but forget about it, man. We're gonna get the production better here. You know, you see I added a plant. I got a little light going there. So, you know, we're working on it. We're working on it. Organize my books for y'all. So we're gonna be all right. Appreciate y'all tapping back in with me, man. Tonight, I got my good brother, you know, the macro Don. Always shining, sometimes stunting. Coming through with the education, my good brother, as always. And see, I'm working on production. You see me looking down here. I got my good brother, Winston Buckley, on tonight. Winston, you in here? Let me bring him in here. There he is right there. What's going on, my brother?
How's it going, man? Feeling good. How you doing?
You know, loving life. These macro markets are something to behold, right? It's earnings season. Everyone thought earnings season was going to bring a lot of blood to the streets, but so far it hasn't really been too bad.
Oh man, I know it's confusing and it's exciting at the same time. So yeah, how does all this relate to crypto is the question.
Yeah, right. You know, obviously, if you are new to the channel, this is a crypto focused channel. But as being a crypto focused channel, we started realizing that this shit kind of correlated. Excuse my language, but you know, it really is correlated. We see the stock market go up, Bitcoin goes up. We see the stock market go down, we see Bitcoin going down. So it's been super correlated lately. So we're trying to just do a little bit of deeper dive in, increase our education on the macro topics, so that way we can be prepared. Are you still holding any crypto right now, Winston?
And I have no choice but to hold.
Hey, you know, my guy. Exactly. So, you know, sometimes just like we were talking about with the NFTs, I got no choice to hold. Ain't no one buying it. So, so sometimes, you know, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So again, appreciate you for hopping on, man. Coming on to talk about some of these topics with us. Anybody out there in the comments, let us know if you guys have any specific topics you want us to cover. But we're going to kind of jump into it. We did do a little pre-show and talk about a few things here. So give me 1 second and let me pull up Winston's screen for us and get into it. Boom. And so we do got going on here we got the Dixie. First topic we're going to go over is the Dixie. I did see earlier this week the Dixie made a high of about $114. So what you got for us with the Dixie?
Yeah, the Dixie is an interesting chart, and of course there it goes. An interesting chart just to look at, and it's a combination of different dollars. This is the dollar index, but it compares our dollar to other currencies. And so we're peaking. Obviously, it's down slightly a bit this week, this from the last couple of weeks, actually. But it's been going up this entire year. And why is that? The dollar is strong. So a lot of other countries are going into the dollar because of their own issues around inflation in their economies. So this is a chart that most people don't look at, don't really pay attention to. And it's hard to really fathom because day to day, it doesn't feel like your dollar is getting stronger, right? It feels like your dollar is getting weaker. But in relation to the rest of the world, the dollar is getting stronger. Or we could flip the argument and we could say that actually the dollar is being devalued against other things. So you can actually look at this chart two different ways.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Obviously, you know, the inverse correlation between the DXY, which as Winston said is just the dollar measured against a basket of other currencies, and the stock market, which also correlates to the crypto market, has been very interesting, right? So anytime we've seen the DXY start rising, we've seen traditional markets, as in stocks, as well as crypto markets, pull back. And then once the DXY starts to pull back, we see the traditional markets and crypto markets start to really jump forward. So it's been really interesting to watch. It's not something that I really picked up on previously. So I thought that was super interesting when we were talking about it earlier. Another thing I found pretty interesting is, you know, when you look at other currencies compared to the dollar, obviously the dollar's been getting stronger. But if you look at other currencies compared to Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin has been getting stronger as well. So that's something that I thought was super interesting. And when I looked up some of the inflows of Bitcoin Bitcoin buying, and it's a lot of it is happening outside of the U.S. So you have other countries that are seeing their currencies get devalued a lot quicker, starting to get into Bitcoin. Obviously Russia with the rubles, UK with the GBP, and then the Japanese yen as well. So it's definitely something to keep our eyes on as we go through. I do want to say a quick shout out to my brother Houston Scott. He's one of the members in my Discord. You can find the Discord link below in the description under my link tree. If you guys want to join the Discord, it's free. We just got a small crypto community in there where we really do what we do. And don't forget the pay, which is like, share, subscribe. Appreciate y'all with that. Sorry, Winston. I had to get that
Oh,
little
yeah,
that plug in there real quick. But getting back to it. So, what else do you got for us?
man, that was what you were just talking about leads perfectly into this here. And so this is trading economics, if that's something that y'all want to look at a different point. So, we've been griping about our inflation here in the US. And yeah, it does suck to know that your stuff is at 40-year highs, but it pales in comparison to what's going on in the world. So if you look down here at Turkey and Argentina, we're talking about over 80% inflation from year to year. So yeah, my chicken wings went from $2.99 a pound to $4.29 a pound, but what if they went from $2.99 a pound to $29.99 a pound, right? So we look at our Bitcoin over here and our crypto, and we're just like, hodl mentality. I'm looking at 2050. I'm going to ball out on everybody. But if you look at other places, because their dollar is weak or unstable, a lot of people can't depend on their dollar, and they've totally left out some of these other countries like Zimbabwe, a lot of African nations, a lot of other Latin American nations. But they're saying, okay, I'd rather go into crypto. So what you were talking about with those inflows, they rather depend on cryptocurrencies that, even though people say it's a volatile asset, it's not as volatile as the Turkish dollar or the Argentinian dollar. So that may be the reason why what you were talking about is happening.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the nail on the head, right? Like, it's like, okay, Bitcoin's volatile; it's moving 5% every day. But then if your native currency is moving 25-30% every day, it's like, what's going on? I spoke recently with the Friendly Bear, David Capablanca. Check that video out if you guys haven't seen it yet. And he was speaking about, he just went on his trip to Argentina, and all the prices in Argentina are like being written like in chalk or on a dry erase board, because like, at the start of the day it might be $10, and then at the start of the next day it might be 12, and then the start of the next day it might be 8, right? So these are big concerns that we're privileged here in America to not have to worry and be concerned about. But crypto is a global asset, and that's like one of the reasons that I really got so passionate about crypto. I was like, wait, this affects everyone. When I found out about micropayments and shout out to Ada early on. Some of the things Ada were trying to do, banking some citizens in Africa. Hopefully that comes around sometime soon. But I say all that to say that it's a global asset, right? There's a lot more to it than just what we think about here in America, and that is like the biggest driver for me in crypto, because when you can get good, if you can understand something that affects everyone in the world, you pretty much always have a way to make money, right? Like whether it's teaching somebody those things, whether someone's trying to hire you for those things, it really goes a long way. So definitely something to think about there. Now I know that a lot of the inflation and the kind of the talk around and the narrative right now is that, hey, we're not in a recession because unemployment hasn't really came down yet. We're not in a recession because the unemployment rates are still super high. Obviously they tried to move the goalposts at first, and they were like, obviously everyone knows. I mean, I learned because, like I said, still getting acclimated to these markets here. But I learned that a recession is usually defined by 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. And so after I looked up what GDP growth was, I was like, okay, cool, I got that, no problem. And then, coming out, we hear the president, we hear Secretary Yellen, and a few other high up folks saying that, oh no, a recession is not just 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. It's actually when there's high unemployment rates. So anything you can touch on there? I know we spoke about it previously. You got a slide for me?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a site that's called shadowstats.com, And their whole mission is to use a lot of the data points that the Fed and the governments used to use in order to count inflation, GDP, and even unemployment. And so today was actually the first time I've been on Shadow Stats for over a year, just looking at their charts. But for whatever reason, I've never paid attention to their unemployment chart. So what they're saying is the official U.S. report is saying that unemployment is still at historic lows, like less than 5%. Shadow Stats is saying that no, actually unemployment is over 25%. And one of the reasons is they're counting people that have left the job market. And so when these numbers are reported, there are sectors of the economy and there are people that are not counted in the official report. And so Shadow Stats is saying, no, we're going to count everybody and we're going to count everything. So they may have it wrong, but they might be off by a point or two. So that it's kind of scary when you think about that. But there might be a lot of unemployment in, let's say, white collar jobs or certain sectors. So it's like it's a different way to look at what's actually going on. And hey, we're not anti-government over here, y'all. So yeah, don't don't come for us. But if you just understand what is used and how it's used by certain regulatory bodies, then you can actually go and do your own research and dig a little further and say, oh, okay, well, if I added this metric in here, if I added this data point in here, then actually that number is this. And that's what Shadow Stats is saying. So they're not like anti-government. They're just saying, oh, we're still using like the 1970 method to calculate some of these data points.
And so you're saying Shadow Stats is using the 1970s method compared to the government using their new updated method, which may or may not fit into a narrative that they're preaching.
Exactly. So the Fed, what Justin was talking about, they had that dual mandate, which is centered around inflation and unemployment. And so if the reports are created, and I'm trying to be careful. If the reports read certain ways, it affects other things. It's not just for what the Fed does, but Social Security. They look at these numbers to see if they're going to do cost of living adjustments. There's so many different bodies that look at data that comes out. So there's a lot of meetings as far as like what should we count and what shouldn't we count. And they're trying their best to get accurate data, but a lot of it's lagging. And all of it isn't included. So, take this what you want and do what you want with it, and maybe not use it, but it is good to have some alternative data.
Yeah, at least have some alternative to look at, right? Because when we speak about everything we were just talking about, how is this all playing into crypto with these macro talks? Well, we got the DXY, like we said, when the DXY has been going up, the traditional assets, which have also been correlated with crypto assets, have been going down. When the DXY seemingly is going down, the traditional assets and the crypto assets seem to be turning back up. So obviously, that's a huge indicator to look for. Then when we talk about the federal government kind of moving the goalposts, saying that, oh, we're not in a recession, even though everything that we've been looking up and trying to understand kind of points to a recession is on the horizon. And then kind of going into the last stats that you're saying there with Shadow Stats, saying that the unemployment rate and the way it's calculated is modified and has been modified over the past several years in regards to how it used to be calculated. So depending on which one you want to go with, it might sway your direction a little bit. So those are some great
Absolutely.
points, and I appreciate it because when we talk about doing your own research, especially in the crypto markets, it's hard enough. And so if you can get a little bit of guidance from the traditional markets that also help you make crypto decisions, I think that's the way that we're all gonna have to play it as we kind of move forward. Um,
Right.
so kind of staying on top of some of those macro topics. Again, like we said, it is a crypto topics that we normally talk about, but the macro talk is playing into what we got going on. I know you said there was something going on with if the PCE inflation. Was that what?
Right. So yeah, like just said, I know people are like, man, what does all this have to do with crypto? Trust me, we're gonna tie it all in together. But I didn't know crypto. When you really go down rabbit holes in crypto, it teaches you to learn about more things. It really does, and you find yourself looking at stuff you never thought you would look at, but it's all correlated. So yeah, with the PCE, so we talk about inflation quite a bit, but a part of it, and another thing that the Fed and other regulatory bodies look at is the personal consumption expenditures price index. So this is the prices and goods and services purchased by consumers in the U.S. So they look at this month to month as well. And the next report of this is going to be on the 28th of this month. So a couple of days from now. So that might be higher or lower. Of course, if it's lower, then that's positive for the market. That's good news, and that tends to lead into crypto. So you might see a pump off of that. But if it goes the other direction, then obviously, people are going to feel more bearish if that comes out. But this is an important piece of data that the Fed and other bodies look at to make either predictions, and I mean that's probably going to go into the Fed decision next week.
Yeah. See, this is another one, right? See, these are all the things that the little nuggets you can take from here. And yeah, you might got to go do some Googles, but you do those Googles, find out, okay, what is the PCEP? What is the personal consumption expenditure price, right? And then understand what makes up that. Okay, and how does the Fed or how does the government use the data that makes it up to then, execute their strategy, all right? And as we know, Powell said that the Fed is going to be data driven. So having these indicators, and not really indicators, but having these data points and these reports come out and knowing, okay, this is what I should be looking into, can be very paramount. So appreciate that one, because this was one that like I understood, but not to the levels of like how much it really impacted like the decision making at the Fed. So and really quick, talking about the Fed and some of the decisions that they're talking about making, you know, in the last meeting, Powell used the word pain a lot. I was misquoted in my last video. I kept saying fear, but he used the word pain like a lot. There could be more pain in the market. There could be more pain to come. We could be seeing more pain. And those are all hawkish terms, meaning that trying to quail the rumblings of pump it, right? Of Bitcoin to the moon, assets to the moon. And so I found that super interesting, the fact that the tech sector is getting smashed, but Bitcoin, which previously, in my opinion, was kind of starting looking like a tech stock, seems to, at least show some signs of life, right? So we see that the earnings report came out for Meta today, and Meta was down to like $112 after the earnings report. So they didn't have great earnings. But what are you seeing, in regards to some of those things?
Yeah, man, dude, that was perfect what you just said, because it got to the point where a lot of people just like looking at the Nasdaq to kind of predict what was going on with Bitcoin. They're like, "Oh, it's a tech stock, trades like a tech stock. So if we see what's going on with all the FANG stocks, then we'll know what's going on with Bitcoin." But what's happened this year between the war, this crazy inflation, has kind of moved and pivoted the whole reasoning for Bitcoin to go back to what it was designed to be, which is that alternative asset for people to use. And so now we're starting, maybe the Bitcoin will just divert again away from what's going on in the market. And so a lot of the risk on assets, like all the tech stocks, and CNBC has just reported on some of the earnings reports from this week. And you touched on Meta is down, Boeing is down, Microsoft is down, Spotify is down. So a lot of the tech companies are down. But what's so interesting is just like Deutsche Bank is up, Barclays is up, Standard Charter is up. So a lot of the banking stocks are up, and I mean, it's a myriad of reasons why that could be happening. But I'm not excited to see tech stocks get beat up, because that's part of my portfolio too. But to see that Bitcoin is actually doing something different from Meta and Google and all the things that they're kind of tied to is just like, okay, something's going on here. So what's the narrative?
Yeah, and I spoke to that previously, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago in one of the last. I don't know if it was a live I did with you or with someone else, but I was basically saying, they're trading Bitcoin as a tech stock. Once they realize the people are, that need Bitcoin start using it, it will stop being traded like a tech stock, right? And what did we just talk about earlier in this call, saying how people outside of the US especially are starting to need Bitcoin, not really just trade it like a tech stock, because they're seeing like, oh, like my currency is going up, left, down, right. Like I need at least something that people are valuing. And, right now people are still valuing Bitcoin. So I thought that was super interesting. as we kind of rolled through, and we were talking about it during the pre-show. So another thing I thought is pretty interesting is the tech or not tech, I'm sorry, the buybacks that are happening. There's a lot. There's over $1 trillion in buybacks from these companies, and so with the tech sector getting hit so hard, it seems like there was just an open letter that was released by Brad Gershner. Who, if you don't watch the All In podcast, I highly suggest you watch it. I've learned so much, and me and Winston have actually like called each other. We're calling each other. We're just chit chatting. Like, oh yeah, by the way, did you see? And then he finishes the sentence because you get from my perspective, I've gained a lot of understanding from watching that podcast. So I suggest it to everyone. Again, the All In podcast. But so one of their guests that comes on is Brad Gershner. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And he just wrote an open letter to Meta. And basically, the open letter said, hey, I've been we've been supporters. My fund has been supporters of you guys for so long. We love what you normally do. Mark, the fact that you're still running Meta is great because we love founder led companies. The only thing he was kind of pointing to the downside was that is there room for cutbacks? Like, how can we stop the bleeding on some of this? So with over $1 trillion in buybacks happening for these type of companies, and then the possibility of investors starting to really, grumble about, hey, like, do we need to have 10 coffee machines? Or like they have more than that, right? They got whole cafeterias built out. They got laundry service. They got maid service for the house. They got all the perks and benefits and all the bells and whistles that come along with working at a Google, with working at an Apple, with working at a Meta. When you see these when you see the stock actually pulling back so much, you see the core investors being like, okay, like what can we do? Obviously we're on this bridge of like deep diving into a possible recession, and what are the first things to go? Usually advertising. And then once you can cut back advertising, you start looking internally to your own staff. Okay, do we have too many heads here, right? How much are we paying out? What are you bringing in compared to what are we paying you and putting out? And I think that could be a real narrative going into the end of it. I mean, we've already seen slight signs of it, but combined with what I was saying about that letter that was just written to Meta, we could see that as being like a real narrative driving forward.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Meta doesn't own the metaverse, so I know some people are just like, well, yeah, Facebook is my entryway to the metaverse, and that's one of the reasons why their stock is so down because they really poured in heavy like their investments into building out the metaverse. But I mean, it's disappointing even for us that are like heavy in the crypto and NFTs. Like now, I think most people are realizing like this is a slow crawl to get to metaverses, the interaction of it and the usefulness of it to where it needs to be. Like we're far as away. Like we see it happening, but yeah, it's not like next year, like 6 months, we're all going to be in the metaverse.
Yeah, in 2020, when everything started pumping up and everything was just going crazy and the narratives were just really, to the moon, I got in that same euphoria sense, right? Then going into 2021, it just kept going up. So it was like, oh, wow, like this is happening. It's now, it's now, it's now. Like, let's go. It's happening. And then now, since November, and you got a lot more time on your hands to really look around and take a better understanding of what's going on. I feel so much more educated and empowered. Not that I wasn't previously, but just like, okay, this is a long game. Your thesis coming in was the long game. There's no reason, when you're only 10% into the race to all of a sudden change pace and be like, oh, actually, I should do something different. So it's a great reminder right there.
Oh yeah.
And with that great reminder, kind of going into what we were speaking about next was, dang, Winston, I thought I could draw it out and you would click on the next thing and I could know, but you didn't do that. So now just you got me out here you got me just stumbling. You know what I mean? Come on. And so going into some of that stuff, we were talking about the GDP report and the one headline that you grabbed right there, don't be fooled by a strong GDP. And so these are just some of the more numbers. So go ahead and hop into some of that.
Yes. So all right, not a political show, and we don't ride with the blood of the Crips, but we do have to understand like where we are and what this time of the year means. And so we're going into a voting cycle, like where we're in the voting cycle. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So obviously, a good, strong GDP report would be a plus. I mean, for everybody. So it's just like, on one hand, is you want the economy to do like the free market that we learned about in economics, our early economics classes. That there's this invisible hand, and the market does what it's supposed to do, and when stuff gets overheated, gets cooled down, and just let the free market do what it does. But obviously, there are things that are happening, for voting reasons, like a strong. You want a strong economy. I mean, everybody wants a strong economy. Nobody here wants a weak economy. It benefits everybody, but obviously, for voting, this means quite a bit. So, we don't want to use like skewed or anything, but the GDP report that's coming out, I can't remember if it's this week or next week, but was coming out pretty soon, might be higher than expected. And so there might be this hopium that, oh, the economy's turning around. We're going to go into a strong spending season, Black Friday and everything. And like, it's going to be like a lot of strong shopping, but that might not necessarily be the case. And this may be a head fake for what's about to happen, because all the way up to this point, I mean, JP Morgan, you had a lot of, you got, man, heads of states. You got all these big hedge firm CEOs coming out saying, like, prepare yourselves. The FedEx CEO was just like, yeah, it's about to get bad. So, all of a sudden, like, we got all these positive reports. It just makes you wonder, like, okay, what's the real that's going on here? Kind of what we've been talking about the up to this point in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, is it a pump fake, or is this the real deal, right? Like, what's really going on here? Because, as we get into it, we're gonna look into some of the prices here on some things. Like, you can see that things are starting to go crazy, and the market's trying to figure it out. The market wants to know, like, hey, I'm ready. The market is ready to buy, and I believe that the market is going to get hurt, very much so, from this, because we're not getting clear direction. We're not getting clear direction of, like, what's going on and what the policy is. They say that they're data driven, but then the data coming out tells us that they're not following the data that's coming out, and then we're not sure if the data that's coming out is factual or if it's not. So it's really like a dance, and and if one person falls off beat, then it starts looking real scary out there, right? And that's like exactly what's going on right now. We're in a dance with the Fed, and in Q4, as if whether it's retail investors or whether it's the Fed, if someone starts stepping off beat, they're gonna get laughed out the building. And while they're getting laughed at, their portfolio is gonna be going down too with that. So that's something that we all need to be aware of.
Yes,
And
indeed.
so speaking of that, right? So it was the way I've been looking at it. I've been kind of having this game plan going on, and I shared it with all the people that are in the Discord. So shout out to my Discord fam that's in the chat. Appreciate y'all being in here. And like, if you could, hit the like one time, maybe share a comment. I don't know, do what you do, but hey, it's there. It's there if you want. No pressure, but you could. But anyway, so like I said in the Discord, I was saying that I'm long right now, and I said to you off air, I'm long right now for most of my portfolio going into everything, because I thought we were going to get a strong bounce, and we have gotten that strong bounce. I'm still charting to see if the continuation is going to follow through, but because Bitcoin did hold that 18.6 level and it's now trading right around 20K, when Bitcoin calms down a bit and there's positive sentiment, alts are ready. Alts are ready to do what they
Oh
do.
yeah,
So are you looking at any altcoin specifically, or what's your kind
man.
of thought process with some of that?
Yeah, let me go back to what we usually see it today. Like ETH, just I mean, it just went this week. Like Ethereum just went crazy, and Bitcoin has done really well. To your point that you were talking about, so I was just like, it's man, it's been so long that we've had like a week like this, dude. It's been so brutal. Like it really
Winston
feels
said it's
like,
been so long.
man, this is like if y'all were here in 2017, like like so now we're looking at this from a different standpoint, and I can have some resolve around it. But 2018, January, February 2018, I was like, man, I messed up big time. Like I can't tell nobody about this. Like they got me on this one. They got me on this crypto stuff. They really did. But looking at it now, it's just like, okay, all right, so we can go away with some things. But I sorted this chart out, and I just totally forgot about this project Toncoin. And Toncoin is the Telegram token. And I was just like, man, what a narrative. Like there's always narratives and there's always a bull market somewhere. But if we just look at like the winners from this week, we can kind of see what's going on now. Aptos, there's a lot that may or may not go on with Aptos. It's the hot new thing. It's a new kid on the block. But we look at Doge is in the top earners for this week, Toncoin, and I was just like, why is that? And so you and I, we were talking about it throughout the week. And part of that is because of what Reddit did. And so Reddit had the right idea to sell NFTs, but not call them NFTs. They just said, come get this digital collectible.
We got these digital collectibles for you, man. I mean, I don't know if you heard about them. They all right. They hot on the streets right now. Yeah, there's a whole beef going down, but I mean, they did a great job overall because it's the same thing as like from an automobile being called an automobile to be calling a vehicle to be calling a car, right? It's the same thing. It's just the way it got packaged was a little different. I actually read now I'm on Twitter a lot, so I read on Twitter there was a thread going around about how people were actually, kind of scared and intimidated to use automobiles, and they thought that it would be better to just use the horse and buggy, the carriage, for a long time. So, not getting too deep into that, but it's the same type of situation going on right here. So, we do have Twitter versus Reddit kind of going at it. There's a lot of making fun of and kind of poking at each other in regards to what's going on and what's going down there. But they did onboard 3 million people. They onboarded 3 million people with new crypto wallets. So, I don't care what you call it. If you're going to bring in 3 million people into crypto, I am so for that. Because obviously, we see the adoption. We know the adoption is coming. And it's just kind of more so a matter of time before it actually falls into place.
Man, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They already had a community, a very large community. Might we add, and they offer something and kept it non-technical. Okay, we want to introduce this new service, and they did it in the right way. They had low price points, so from $9.99 to $99.99, and they sold the benefits. Instead of saying, oh, this is a non-fungible token, and you're gonna have a piece of the blockchain that'll be yours forever. Like, man, nobody cares about that. Oh, if I get this digital collectible, I have this level of access and I can do these new things on this platform that I already use, and it's going to do all these new things for me. Perfect. Like you were saying, man, 3 million new people onboarded into crypto and they didn't even know it. That's what we want. And that's where we need to go with it. The gamers, they push back so hard on NFTs, but I'm like, man, y'all already using NFTs. Like, I don't get it. But the fact that it's called the NFT is the reason why there's the pushback on it. But man, Reddit did it right.
Reddit did it right. Anything else you want to leave the people with, Winston, man? I appreciate you coming on. If you guys get a chance, please go follow my good brother, Winston Buckley, at Get Metarized on Twitter. Hit the likes, hit the retweets. I don't know too many good brothers that are dedicated to the space and come through with the links like Winston. You know what I mean? Like, this is the link god, link king. I don't know what you want to call it, but you can find Winston's link tree in the description below as well. Any final words, Winston?
Yeah, just do your own research. It's gotten quiet now, and this is the perfect time to really block out the noise, because there's not a lot of noise, a lot of FUD out there. But when it was Hopium, it was too noisy. So you can get led astray. A lot of us got led astray. But this is a time to actually look at the data, look at the stuff on chain, look at the fundamentals, and take some time and really understand this. And you're going to be in the best position of your life if you do the work. But you got to do the work. So that's what I want to leave the people with.
And that's facts. You heard it here. You got to do the work, put in the work. Like I said, follow us on Twitter, IG, jump in the Discord, find a community to get around that also talks about these things, at least like-minded people. You can see Reddit is now with the NFTs in the crypto game. Twitter, heavy on crypto Twitter. Elon taking over Twitter. He came through with the sync. There's no excuses. Appreciate y'all. See you on the next one. And we out!